Hi there, and welcome to the ATS podcast with me, Will Brown, and John Soulsby, where we break down chunks of health and fitness information into bite sized pieces, remove a bunch of the noise, and just leave what's relevant. Today we are on episode 8. Today's topic is how to deal with low motivation, whether that be motivation to work out, um, keep on track with your diet, recovery, whatever that might be. But first up, we have an off topic. Relevant to motivation. It's probably our favorite off topic so far, I think, which is favorite gym hype videos.
Yeah, this is the one I've done the most prep for. So
Yeah, it's literally like the official stuff that's actually helpful to people. We're just like, nah, we'll wing it. When it's
yeah,
absolute meme videos from the internet in the early 2000s, it's like we need the dissertation. We need a dissertation. We need certs,
I I don't know
sourced
what you
information.
say. These were not meme videos when they came out. I watched these before every gym session 10 years ago, 11 years ago when they came out.
The peak. I genuinely think I almost thought that internet gym videos had peaked in the mid 2000s, but actually there's some that are more recent that are quite funny that we'll get to.
Yeah,
Yeah. So what ones you've got links here in the old document? What have we got?
yeah. So it's
Obviously it's audio only, so we're gonna have to explain it to the listeners.
yeah. For those that have been in the game a while, you'll probably know who Elite FTS are. I don't really know if they're as big anymore, or
Well,
the
for those,
company looks as big, but I don't think it's like as prevalent anymore.
they seem to be chugging along. I think.
Yeah.
What? Who are they for people who are not?
Sorry, yeah. So Elite FTS was a company that's set up by Dave Tate in his garage, I think, as all top companies set up, like like ATS. Um, and they sell gym equipment essentially, but he's like an old school, like West Coast Barbell or West Side Barbell powerlifter, bit of a nut job. Um, and yeah, they sell powerlifting equipment, but they also did loads and loads of like really good blog content and articles and stuff with loads of, especially 10 years ago, loads of like prevalent like writers in the industry, really.
Oh yeah,
Um,
it was very much one of the first kind of big resources for strength training information specific to not even just well specific to powerlifting, but even more generally like just team strength and conditioning information and stuff like that.
yeah,
Um, I think people these days, I mean, we're literally doing a podcast because there's so much information that it's confusing, and so we're trying to break down the noise because there's so much information and just be like, here's what's actually relevant. The rest of it
or
is all either like fancy extras or doesn't really matter.
yeah,
In the kind of early the early 2010s specifically, it must have been around like 2000 and about 2009 to onwards. There was like two websites. It was like two or three forum post websites where you could read
yeah,
blogs or chat to other meatheads in a forum posting manner, and that was about it.
yeah. T Nation used to be an absolute giant, and then they ruined it.
Yeah, T Nation was there. Bodybuilding.com was there. The UK specifically had Sugden Barbell, which was a bit of an active message
Yeah,
board. That's where a lot of the OGs kind of hung about.
I think that's us really showing our age is that actually we first started learning stuff from the message board type things rather than YouTube.
Yeah, there wasn't big online communities like the amount of science communicators, I think you call them. People like really smart people who ken the research and just put it in a presentable and understandable manner for chimps like us. Um,
Yeah,
Folk like Greg Knuckles, Jeff Nippard, like Lane Norton, all that, like Brett Contreras, like all of that stuff was not really about. I mean, Brett Contreras and Greg did post very occasionally. I think Greg was later coming, like came later onto the scene, but
yeah. And I think even like your guys like Eric Cressy, Dean Somerset, they weren't like people like them weren't as prevalent as well because it was just much harder to kind of like notice who they were because it's just people on a message board. Like it's not.
no, very much
Um,
so. Mike Kedleski was on T
Yeah.
Nation. That's where I first met him. The big hamburger train. Anyway, describe word picture what his
So
YouTube outfits are.
w- essentially, the two Elite FTS ones are dudes shifting and actually, is it? Oh, who's the girl that's in it? But yeah, there's essentially like people shifting absolute mad tin in. They essentially built a massive gym out of the equipment that they sell. Um, Mainly, I think, because Dave's a mad meathead, and then they just put heavy metal over the top of it,
Yeah,
and it is lit.
I was about to say the specific context for these would be something that you watch when you are not in the mood to train. This is why it's the off topic. So if you're dealing with
Yeah,
low motivation, essentially something you stick on that will G you up for getting a session in when you otherwise cannot be arsed.
yeah.
um,
Um, so yeah, prove the impossible and it's not about luck are the two Elite FTS ones. There's like loads more, but
I'll have to
that's the
put them in
two.
the I'll remember and put them in the description if I can do that.
Yeah,
That would be cool.
sure you can. Maybe not.
I have a few minor way stranger. What used to be one I would like back in the day. The the Men of the West from Lord of the Rings. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Would crack that on. Um, Again, it got past music. Like music's very good, but I get a lot more mileage out of I guess what would you call it, like spoken word stuff.
Yep.
Um, that like pre-scrap chat in the 13th Warrior, great film if you haven't seen it.
Hmm.
Highly advise. Antonio Banderas, great role. Um, where they're just about to go scrap with the funky cultists up the hill, and he gives the whole like, "Lo, do I see my brother?" like, and
Yeah.
everyone back to the beginning. Um, Other notable ones include there's a new. Oh, I was talking about the new ones. Like we thought we hit peak internet
Hmm.
back in the day. Number one, there's a great video that Claire found that is from a league of their own, which is where they essentially asked Michael Sheen to like improv a locker room speech for the Wales rugby team before they play England.
Oh, amazing.
Oh no, wait, is it World Cup? It might actually be Football World Cup. I think
Oh,
it's actually Football
that
World Cup, not Rugby World Cup. I like either way, it's hype. Like
is it.
it is really good.
Oh, to be fair, on the same vein, some of the Ian McGeechan ones to the Lions are phenomenal.
Oh yeah, stuff like that. They're pretty great. Um,
Oh, what was the classic? I'll be back.
You're off to YouTube.
One nation.
The
Here, it's the Al Pacino's halftime speech. Like one, oh, what film is it? Right, here's YouTube. Here we go. See what I mean by this is the. Oh,
in isn't
this
it?
description is terrible.
Is this not the Game of Inches one where he's meant to be playing like
Yeah.
Vince Lombardi or whatever it was?
Yeah. I can't remember what the name of the film is now.
Furious googling. Any
Yeah.
given Sunday.
Yes. Yeah. There we are. That one, amazing.
Yeah, great. The what's some other ones? Um, oh, the some of the new ones. The other one, there's I've recently found it. I'm not entirely sure if this was meant to intentionally be workout hype, but it kind of is. It's definitely not as weird as like the odd times where I've looked up stuff like just odd videos that like of animals fighting that people have set to music. Like that's a weird one.
Yeah.
Um, I think like they're a bit sus in the fact that some of them are kind of like MGTOW and like men's righty and a bit right wing. Not a lot of them. Um, but they are some weird I've just looked. Someone's trying to coin the term stoic wave as the genre of music that this is
Brilliant.
part of, which is hilarious. Um, yeah, there's loads of them. If you YouTube for relevance for these ones, if you YouTube something like reject weakness, embrace discipline, it essentially starts with a bunch of clips of this is where it gets like people use kind of political clips. It's essentially people who
Oh,
are out of shape and or moaning, crying, or just talking about stuff that would, let's say, not align with traditional masculine values or what some people might call toxic masculinity. Take your pick. Uh, and then it usually just has in the middle a clip of somebody like Z's. Usually, if you don't know who that is, hilarious Google black hole for you to go
honestly.
down. It's essentially some. He was a fairly prolific bodybuilding and fitness advocate that sadly passed away very young under very dubious circumstances to do with substances. He had quite a strong Australian accent though, and it usually just involves him cutting out like in the middle of people moaning about stuff, and then hardstyle dance music kicks in, and then it just turns into a really fast clipped montage of any kind of like sports, lifting. Elon Musk is in there occasionally, like just anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
is very wild. I genuinely was like, nah, internet hype videos have peaked. You've got the classic Ronnie Coleman montages. That's like
Oh,
mandatory
okay, of
viewing
course.
for
Yeah.
can't not look at Big Ron.
So one thing that's just popped into my brain after we kind of brought up Elite FTS again. This has nothing to do with motivation. It will not motivate you if you're training. But Wendler Vision from Elite FTS,
Yeah, Wendler Vision videos on Elite FTS were fantastic.
amazing. These great warm up videos.
Jim Wendler, if you've well, you may not have known, but wrote the first ebook iteration of the program called 531. 531
Yeah.
is an incredibly popular strength training program that has had many, many iterations, revisions, different specific things done to it for different contexts and stuff for sport, football, for like all kinds of stuff. And Jim wrote that book and still sells it to this day. Dude literally wrote like
Yeah.
one ebook and retired. Um,
And in fairness, it's pretty good.
yeah, it's really
Pretty,
quite good. If it wasn't, it
yeah.
wouldn't have sold that much.
Yeah.
Um, but on to the actual topic before we turn this into an entirely too long, just solely sole off-topic podcast.
So until we just this podcast is just a YouTube black hole of
Is how to deal with low motivation. I mean, the obvious one, quite clearly, given how long the off-topic was, is find find some gym videos or music that kind of gets you hyped, puts you in the mood to train and go lift stuff. Can be really anything, just stuff that gets you going. Anything that gives you goosebumps is usually a good one.
yeah. I mean, if you don't get hyped up by that video of Aragorn before they go into Mordor, like I mean, what are you doing? But yeah, no. In all seriousness, I think there's from like actually something that's helpful that can probably identify if it's a more chronic feeling of not wanting to train. Like everyone has days where they don't want to train because they're tired or they don't feel well or whatever. Um, but if it's like a more chronic, like a few weeks or even months that you really don't want to ever train, I suppose assessing like why you don't want to train is really important. So if that's maybe some health stuff that you've got to sort out, which means you're always tired to train, or actually if you're just like not training for the right thing anymore, or um yeah, you kind of need to reassess your goals to like actually motivate yourself to go like work out.
Definitely. I also think it can be handy if you kind of think about if you're kind of not in the mood to work out for whatever reason, it can be helpful to think of all the other things. Like if you like are worried you're going to have a bad session or you don't feel in like a good enough kind of headspace to have a good session, it can still be worth remembering being like, oh well, like I might not have the best session, but I'm still gonna go work out because it helps me sleep, or
Yes.
it makes me feel better and puts me in a better mood and like helps my mental health and stuff like that. Like finding like it feeds into so many other things, so you don't need to worry about like if you're training for something being like, oh, this session's gonna be so brutal, I just don't really want to do it, like I can't be bothered. Like you can just do like less. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like you can
Yeah.
just
I
be
think.
like, ugh, it just wasn't there today, but I put in a session, got sweaty, like it's gonna help.
Yeah, I feel we almost spoke about this in our very first podcast about what's the best program. But like, even just going to the gym and like warming up to what your first set should be, and then being like, nah, I just don't have it today, and then going home is better than just sitting on your couch at home
Yeah.
and not going and doing it.
Oh yeah.
You'll make more progress. Whatever your goal is, powerlifting, sport, whatever, that will at least take you towards your goal more than doing nothing. So I think having a good routine and plan for your training, but also appreciating that not every session is going to be like an absolute banger that you feel like you destroyed everything,
Yeah.
and
Like
just
the
taking what's
yeah, take what's there. Um Genuinely once you warm up, you will probably feel a lot better. Like I have so easily lost count of the amount of days where I have felt rubbish until I have trained. So I've literally gone in
yeah,
being like, oh, I feel so crap. Training's going to be like an absolute nightmare today. And then you start training and it's fine. And then
yeah,
after training, you feel great. I'm like, oh my god, I feel like 10 times better.
yeah.
I'm
Or on the flip side, like the amount of times I've like warmed up and got going, and I felt I've had the best session almost ever,
mm,
and I felt terrible beforehand. And then the flip side, there's some sessions where you feel great and you warm up and you're like, oh god.
yeah. Sometimes
Um,
yeah, it's not so much like it doesn't essentially correlate to how you feel being how you are going to perform.
yeah,
It can obviously look good, feel good, play good, all that stuff is
yeah,
reasonably well researched, but it's not always one to one of if you feel bad, therefore it will be a bad session. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, dealing with low motivation, sometimes just having, if you've habitualized training for long enough, you will just go. Like, you will
Mhm.
just go train, and that's either through, I don't know, discipline, I don't know what you would call it, like, uh, just having the kind of mental headspace to accept that it might not
Just your
be, yeah, like you don't want to do it, but you're gonna do it. Like,
just your weekly routine by that point is
yeah,
you train on X days.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty
Um,
of stuff that nobody wants to do, but you should, like, you just do it because the
it's
downside
purpose.
outweighs, yeah, the downside outweighs everything. I was more thinking taxes, but yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't want to do my tax return. It's
No.
so boring. The
Um,
website's terrible.
website is
Like,
terrible.
I'm very bad with I'm like bad with numbers, like all this stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm just like I can't be bothered. And then I'm like, well, I also don't want to go to jail, so
Yeah.
so I will, or I also don't want to pay them any more money than I absolutely have to.
Is a late fee. Um, I think as well, like you kind of touched on it, is you can find when we were talking about like, or when I said like going back and looking at your goals, is like there's so many more goals to training. Even if you're just training to be as competitive as you can be in powerlifting, there's so many more like reasons you do it than just I want to be good at powerlifting. Like if you can, it usually helps to speak to someone who can help you with it. But like if you can actually go down and be like, well, why do I actually want to do this? And you'll come up with so many reasons of why you want to powerlift American football or just train in general.
Hmm.
And having more reasons to go to the gym is great because if you're feeling a bit rubbish, like, oh well, I go to the gym for these three reasons and they won't happen without me going, so I'll go.
Yeah, the it can be very challenging. Like the especially when people are new and starting up, that's probably when things are gonna be the hardest because it's like you're adapting to the discomfort of training. Like that's one of the hardest things that, to get people started is the fact that there is a little bit of discomfort. Like it should be appropriately managed, either by yourself or one of the main reasons you can hire somebody to help you start, like showing you the
Yeah.
ropes and making sure you're on the right kind of thing, is so that the training is managed in a way that means that you kind of boil the frog in terms of discomfort. Like you only push kind of a little bit out of what would be too much discomfort, or sorry, just enough discomfort, and then you just push like a little bit further and a little bit further. I've heard a fair amount of people who have come in for PT saying that they've had PT before and they got destroyed and they were
Yeah.
sore for like days upon days afterwards. Like some of the stuff they're describing, you're like not sure if it's low key, like muscle strains as well as like DOMs, like,
Yeah.
and that just doesn't really like that isn't really conducive to a very positive experience. You're not like if someone's
Or
like, well, if this was session one and I've got to
yeah.
do this like how many times a week forever, they're going to be like, screw that, no.
Also, you're just not physically capable of doing that many times a week.
Yeah, yeah, that's just gross.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say definitely people come in with us and their first session, if they have like soreness for more than 2 days, kind of like we've done a bit too much in the first. Well, there's no kind of we have done too much in the first session.
Yeah,
I would
like
say.
usually most people are like, "Is that it?" And you're like, "Yep, trust me,
Yeah.
it's probably all we need. Like, it's only a couple sets. Like, we're not doing
Yeah.
anything too rowdy." And even then, they're like, "Oh, legs were a bit sore last time after split
Mhm.
squats." You're like, "Uh-huh." Well,
Yeah.
probably quite glad we didn't do 4 sets till difficult.
Yeah.
We just did a couple till a little hot. That's about it. Um. So yeah, I think there's no like amazingly good answer for how to deal with low motivation. Like you don't want to just be like the have you tried trying guy, but the considering other benefits to training other than just your main kind of goal, the
Yeah.
other yeah, like and the fact that you do not have to consistently crush expectation, you can just alter things to fit. Like you can auto regulate your training a bit. That's kind of part of the learning of knowing when you are generally burst and when to just chill.
Yeah.
And that doing anything, even just going to the gym, warming up, moving around, and seeing how you feel, will be so much better than not going.
Yeah. And I do think one thing that's really helped my clients, I think, as well as yours, is the kind of more in-depth goal setting that we've been doing.
Yeah, we can chat about that in a
Because
different episode.
yeah,
That's an easy episode in itself.
but like it just gives you more reasons than the first reason. Like most people go to the gym for like a reason when they first think about it. Like I want to be jacked, I want to look better, I want to move better. But then kind of when you boil it down, there's so many reasons why you actually want to do that, and I think that helps a lot when you've got a bit low motivation, which is also totally normal.
Oh, definitely. And that pretty much covers it. I will attempt to put some of those YouTube links in the descriptions of the
Yeah.
podcast. Uh, and until next time, we will catch you guys in the next episode.